Hello, AP Biology students. We're going to go over the 15th section in Unit 3. And in this section, we're going to start talking about the first step in cellular respiration, which is known as glycolysis. A couple small little things before we get into the actual process about glycolysis is that it occurs in most organisms. And it occurs before the Krebs cycle or the electron transport chain because it evolved way before those processes. This process also doesn't require oxygen, so it's anaerobic. And this is because it evolved in a time on Earth when the atmosphere had very low levels of oxygen. So without oxygen, these organisms had to evolve a process that didn't require oxygen. Now, glycolysis occurs in the cytoplasm of a cell. During glycolysis, glucose is going to be broken down into two pyruvate molecules. In this part of Unit 3, it's also important that we focus on the carbons. Glucose has 6 carbons in it. Each pyruvate has 3 carbons in it. So in this step, we're not losing any carbon in the form of carbon dioxide. This is basically what I want my biology students to understand about glycolysis. You intake a glucose molecule and you get 2 pyruvate molecules out. And overall, we have to spend 2 ATP molecules to get 4 in return. Now that's going to net us a total of 2 ATP from this step. In AP biology, I want them to understand what the 2 main steps of glycolysis are. Our first step is going to be called the energy investment step. And like the name implies, this is where we're going to use 2 ATP to phosphorylate glucose. Glucose is then going to split into 2 of the G3P molecules, which we saw before in photosynthesis. So again, we're looking at the energy investment step, which is above this dotted line. You can see we're starting up here with the glucose, and we're using 2 ATP to phosphorylate glucose. Glucose becomes something called fructose 1,6 biphosphate. The name is fructose 1,6 biphosphate because there are 2 phosphate groups on the first and the 6th carbon here. Now this molecule is unstable, so it's going to break down to 2 of these G3P molecules. Now we have the energy harvesting step. And like the name implies, this is where we're going to get energy out. NAD is going to oxidize G3P and become NADH. That means NAD becomes NADH through a reduction reaction. It's going to gain electrons and that hydrogen ion. We're also going to create 2 ATP molecules per G3P. G3P is also going to be converted into something called pyruvate. And like I said, this whole process occurs twice because there are 2 G3P molecules from the energy investment step. So again, each of these G3P molecules is going to go through this process where NAD becomes NADH and we get 2 ATP molecules. So overall in this energy investment step, we're making 2 NADHs and 4 ATP. Now, the type of ATP production that we're going to see in this step is called substrate level phosphorylation. Remember that phosphorylation just means that we're adding a phosphate group to something? And substrate level is talking about how an enzyme is going to facilitate this reaction. So you can see here our enzyme is facilitating a reaction where it's going to take a molecule with a phosphate group and add it to ADP, making it ATP. Going to end on this meme. This is a good one. Glycolysis looking at glucose like it's going to break it down. Perfect.